Well, this is going to be the maiden voyage of the proverbial maiden voyage of the Atlantic Beach Neptune podcast that I have in mind. That's my vision. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, man.
I've talked to a lot of people at Ragtime who expressed some interest, and everybody seemed to have positive energy about it, including yourself. And so we'll see how it goes. Maybe a rough cut, but if so, we'll get you back and see how it goes.
It'll be what it is, and
it is what it is, as they say. So, Jon May, without further ado, and I want to also add your email address, so you can text that to me later.
Okay.
To put on there, and,
sure.
Just in case somebody wants to get in touch with you or whatever.
Okay.
And but something I know we've been friends for a while.
Yes, sir.
But something that I don't know is what brought you to this region. What brought you to Neptune Beach?
Well, that's a good story. I'll try to make it short. But actually, I grew up in the Midwest, and right after college, was invited down here by a Lutheran pastor, actually, at the time, and just to kind of get involved in Jacksonville and see if I liked it. And I did. So that was many a year ago, but stayed here, raised a family, and maybe two families, and about 15 years ago, moved to Neptune Beach. And I've...
From where did you come from?
Well, from South Side.
Okay.
Yeah, lived mostly on the South Side.
Yeah, I lived in Orange Park for a while and then came out here. Discovered the area.
Yeah, I knew friends out here, and my best friend Tim lives next door, so we sort of reconnected, and after a divorce, frankly, there was a need or an opportunity to kind of do something different and get in a different community. But it's been 15 years, and I love it out here, as most of us who live out this way.
Yeah. What are your favorite establishments out here?
Well, I guess for just hanging out, probably Ragtime, Ocean 60 some, for hanging out with the folks, happy hour time, a couple days a week or so. That's fun. A lot of great friends and people like yourself, that we've met and developed friendships, and it's very interesting because, frankly, there's a lot of differences among a lot of us, but we all respect each other and always have a good time getting together. So,
I noticed coming from Orange Park that I was pretty isolated in my house and didn't really talk too much to the neighbors, and certainly wasn't like a community. But when I came out here and just discovered this, it is a community. You go to Ragtime at any given night and you'll bump into people that you know, and that's really nice. And
that's so true. I mean, I lived in town too, and suburban areas and some nice areas, but people came in, they pulled into their garage door went up, they pulled in, and barely did you certainly had some friends around, but people didn't get out and know each other and socialize, like they do around here, and just have people being outside more. And
it feels good, and I've only been here since 2014, but I've made some deep relationships with a lot of people, man. A lot of people that you and I know mutually. And
true enough.
Yeah. And one of the topics,
what about you? What brought you out here?
Well, I got a job at the Ponte Vedra Inn and Club, and then I needed to move to the beach, and the commute was just way too long. And I also had just ended a relationship, so I was just looking for something kind of like you, small 1-bedroom apartment. Minimalism was my vision.
True. Yes, that's me.
Yeah, I know, right? It's nice. It's actually nice when you don't have a lot of clutter and a lot of stuff, but it keeps things clean. But I got out into the community and just began, making friends quickly, through Ed Robb, actually.
Yeah.
And then met Rada and Roger fairly quickly.
Sure. And
Rada was quick to give me relationship advice.
Yes, sir.
Rada Weeder, and I just made friends. I make friends pretty easily.
We all give you some relationship advice, but fortunately, you didn't follow all of it. It made your own.
Well, you and I both have a history with Colombian women now.
True enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and one of the topics I wanted to talk about today was The coyote episode that I spoke to you briefly about last night. Apparently there's some coyotes going around at night on the dunes. I think it's few and far between, but they're out there apparently. And one particular individual that lives in our community decided to take him out via crossbow. Yeah, and then he posted pictures of it on Facebook.
Oh, he did take him out?
Oh yeah, he took him out.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and there's most of the things on Facebook were pretty negative, and just why would he be compelled to make that public? And first of all, on Facebook, and
really?
I don't know if they're doing any harm. I really don't know. I don't live right by the dunes, but you kind of do live very close to the dunes.
Right.
I mean, have you seen them?
No, I haven't seen them.
Okay.
I mean, I don't go out there every night. Tim, my neighbor, does takes his dog down every night.
Has Tim?
He hasn't said anything about it.
Okay. Right.
So it might be an isolated.
Maybe it's Atlantic Beach only, not Neptune Beach. I don't know. Maybe they don't cross the divide there. I think I'm kind of disturbed that Neptune Beach is called Neptune Beach because it's all that whole area is just kind of one.
Yeah, I mean it all should be called Neptune Beach. Right?
No. Atlantic Beach. I think it all, but I think it's biased. If you live in Atlantic Beach, you want it to be called Atlantic Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right on.
I think we're doing fine. Just we coexisting pretty well together.
Yeah, that's true.
Jack's Beach, maybe it's a little different story, though.
Yeah. So
are we beach snobs?
No, I don't.
No,
I wouldn't say we're beach snobs. Yeah, no.
So what? Was a coyote like harming anything, or
from what the guy said, the coyote was taking out the occasional neighborhood cat. Well, that was his motive. That's what I understand from what he posted on Facebook.
Well, there's a bunch of feral cats in my neighborhood, so maybe he should come around.
Are they?
Yeah.
Do you follow the Facebook, the Atlantic Beach Facebook site, or just,
no? The Neptune Beach Facebook site.
But you can follow both.
I know, but do you follow the Neptune Beach?
No, I don't.
Oh well,
but I should.
We'll see.
I will starting today.
Well, I will.
I'll look it up, man. I'll look it up. But I know people that aren't on Atlantic Beach that follow it. I'm like Lorraine. I've seen her make comments and people. I know that people that are not Atlantic Beach are following it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but if you start making comments relative to your local community, you could get called out.
Yeah, right.
Check your own neighborhood. And there's been lots of interesting issues over the past years. Obviously, that apartment hotel complex over there, the old Kmart, that was something that got our community really riled up.
Yeah, I'll say. And the Gate gas station as well.
Oh, yes.
Right. Which happened.
In that case, corporate went out. Yeah. Big company went out. But
big PR campaign.
Yeah, and I guess Neptune Beach is not over yet either, right?
What is going in that Kmart?
Nothing.
Nothing? No, there's no decision on that yet?
Yeah, there was a couple of decisions by some council of Neptune Beach, and the Neptune Beach City Council all voted not for it to go forward. But the developers are suing the city, saying that they were not heard, and that they had their permitting or their plans, everything were all in accordance with the laws and the codes and stuff like that. So it's not settled yet.
Okay.
Totally.
All right.
Most of the people didn't want it. Saw more signs.
Right. Yeah, like the Gate gas station. I know people are resisting all the change, basically, almost.
It's interesting out here. I mean, that's sort of the thing. But, you lived in town, Orange Park. I live on the south side. I mean, if somebody wants to put up another apartment complex right on top of the next one, they do it, and they're doing it. I mean, they're all over the place. Yes. Right. I don't know if there's that many people to live in them, but they keep going up. So it's interesting that, the community sense here, people really have a sense of protecting.
Do you know the mayor of Atlantic Beach?
I know the former mayor,
Okay.
Mitch.
Okay. It's a woman now, right?
I think it is now a woman. I don't know.
Right.
Mitch Reeves.
Yeah, I saw her. I think she delivered a short diatribe at the Chris Thomas little concert that they had down there. And
so what else is going on in Atlantic Beach besides the coyote?
Yeah, a lot of people are posting. I mean, there's been some crime, a little bit, tiny bits of crime, but nothing dramatic, But my car's been hit out here, and
really
hit like a couple times when I had my Jeep. Yeah, people were
vandalized or
no, they'd gone inside, broken into my Jeep, and stolen a laptop from my work, and another time they took something else, I think, of lesser value.
Yeah, we had a spat of that in Neptune Beach for a while. But some of those folks go around just looking for a vehicle that's not locked.
Right.
And a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there's some of that.
Believe it or not, don't lock their car all the time.
Let me ask you about hate speech, because hate speech is part of free speech.
Yeah.
What is your feeling on that? Is there a way to, should we legally be curtailing hate speech, or should we just dismiss it without the laws, or should there be laws against hate speech like they have in Canada?
Well, it's a good question. There is some line there. It's like yelling fire in a movie theater. Yeah, there's free speech, but I think there are some limits. Now, what you can do about it, or what you should do about it. People organizing people around hate and things like that. I mean, it really it bothers me a great deal. Hate speech. So to have that, and to have people that are doing that openly, but there's some of the far right white supremacist folks are invited to campus at some places in speech, and they've been denied the right sometimes by the universities, whatever, to come and talk. I don't know. What about you?
Well, I think in the case of a university, or if it's private property, then I think you can
control.
Whoever.
Right to control that. But
I'm not. I think hate speech. I think everybody. I don't think it should be against the law to be an idiot. I think if you're a white supremacist, KKK type of individual with that mindset, and you're an idiot, then hey man, you're just an example of what we don't want. And you're an example that people can point to and say, hey, don't be like that. But when you start bringing the law and getting cops involved, and I see what's going on in the UK now, where they're arresting people for, Facebook posts and tweets and stuff. And
I haven't heard that.
And even Twitter now is beginning, in Google are throwing certain alt-right people off their platform, And that to me is a little bit scary too. And Google in particular, not to get, I know we're local here, but we're going global. We're going global, John. But China,
it is a global world.
You can't even access Facebook
Donald
in China.
Trump thinks it is a global world. And will increasingly be.
Well, he's got a sense of nationalism, though. And I think the conservatives are hungry for that again, because they didn't see that in Obama. I think they saw a guy who was taken advantage of by the international community. I think that's the way conservatives view it,
Well, I know they do.
And when I see Trump and some of the things
in spite of the fact that I think Obama ended up with probably respected across the board in the world. Obviously, literally, Trump's been laughed at,
well, I think that cuts both ways, because I think you could say maybe Obama was respected, but it was Trump that got NATO to pay up.
Yeah, I mean, his strategies.
I think is that respect? I mean, are they? Maybe he's demanding a certain level of respect, whereas Obama was like, "Please respect me,"
Yeah.
And I know that Europe is struggling now with their migrants.
So, in other words, you're saying that there's perhaps a method to his madness, and so to speak.
Yes, there's definitely a method to his madness.
And I think even in his trade rhetoric, there's sort of a threatening, and then he comes back and willing to try to get something.
That's right. That's what he does.
I mean, that's his style.
Sometimes he'll tweet something and you think, wow, that's really odd. But he's either trying to move the narrative that day, or he has something 2 or 3 weeks
from something,
or 2 or 3 weeks down the road, he does something, and you're like, oh, that's why he tweeted that. Like with the Kim Jong with North Korea. And now finally North Korea is not, they're not shooting missiles over Japan anymore. At least we're moving in the right direction.
And I think that the jury's still out on that one.
Well, sure it is, but
recent indications are that the North Koreans are expanding their.
I've heard that, but I think we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, Presidents Obama, Bush, everybody going back. It's really the long term that's more the judge of what they were doing, and often in the short term things look one way or another.
I've got to tell you, man,
down the road when
Obama went against, I was with Obama. I mean, when he called George Bush to the mat for his failures in Iraq, and it was music to my ears. I just thought, here was a guy that was going to come in and really change things.
Yeah.
And I think he came in and he became part of the establishment. And it was a huge disappointment for people like me,
Yeah.
And that's another thing that kind of just, I think Trump is coming in and he's against the establishment. And there's a certain allure for conservatives.
Which is sort of the biggest irony of all, that he is against the establishment, being that he certainly represents, and the people that have served with him represent, the biggest, boldest part of the establishment in the country. The richest billionaire mindset. So, I will give him. He does a great job. He's figured out as relates to the people that are more. People feel that he's talking to them more directly and sympathetically than some of the other people in the past. So, regardless of party, I think he's totally different. So, again, history a little bit down the road probably will judge some of the things that he's done, more accurately maybe than short term. But economically, we all want the economy to do well. I want him to do well, and as long as we maintain some of the constitutional and civil rights that people have worked to this country to have and to maintain.
Obama got to a point where I just didn't believe what he was saying anymore, and I almost felt like he didn't believe it sometimes. His authenticity went down the hole. And
so, what did conservatives say about Obama and lying? What did they say about Obama?
Well, it's not
really one thing.
Yeah, it's the healthcare thing, right? You can keep your doctor.
You can keep your doctor.
Yeah.
If he did lie, he lied once. I think it's been well documented.
I don't know about that. I mean, well, he didn't. He talked a lot about closing Guantanamo Bay, and that was a big deal for me at the time, and I thought that was cool. And he dragged his feet on it. It never happened, And then, I think, they given the money.
But to follow up on my point, he lied about keeping your doctor. That's what everybody came back to, right? Yeah. Especially about Obamacare, because we may like it, but I think by any reasonable analysis, your president now is maybe either misled, lied directly, or misled, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 times.
4,000 or 5,000? I don't know about that many. But here's the thing. A guy like me, I don't really see that. To me, that's almost a plus. And I say that under this.
So it was a negative for Obama, but it's a plus for.
Well, I never said it was a negative for Obama to lie. That wasn't coming from me. Conservatives, maybe.
I think it's a problem for anybody to lie.
Well, yeah, ideally, but I think presidents lie and mislead all the time.
Well,
we can go back to Bush, Clinton. They all do. And
because they're human beings, and perhaps and politically and otherwise, there are times when they stretch things and interpret things, spin things in their own way.
Yeah.
But I think as a rule and as a as a sign of character, I think that anybody who lies consistently that's not good leadership.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
People want to believe in our leaders and want transparency. They want openness. That's what we want. I mean, I think that's what we deserve.
Yeah.
But as one famous person says, we end up getting the government that we deserve.
Yeah. I think deep down conservatives they're not as enamored with Trump as the media makes them out to be. But I think conservatives feel that they have nowhere to turn.
Yeah, I understand that.
They don't like the opposition as much as the opposition doesn't like them, and they just cannot hold their nose in the voting booth and vote for,
Well, we certainly need to get away from more of the Clintons and the Trumps, and the Clintons and the Bushes and stuff like that. We need some freshness, especially on the Democratic side. I'd say, it's
considering that Trump is such a hated person and such a he's seen, by a large majority of people as just being a complete buffoon. So it shouldn't be too difficult, I wouldn't think, to find somebody that can win the election, against him. But be that as it may, he's there now. Support the guy now, and let's just. I'm not asking you to support him. I'm just saying, hope for the best.
No, I do hope for the best.
No más chaos, right? They say in Spanish. Right? I've learned that from Liliana. No complaints. Just absorb it. Hey, man, we didn't win this time. Next time we're going to put up a better candidate, and we'll show those guys. That's really what we want, what we're looking for.
Yes and no. I mean, I think that while I support him and I want things to go well, I don't want him messing with the Constitution, our rights, being above the law. These are things.
I don't think conservatives are into that. I mean, they love the Constitution the way it is.
Yeah, but certainly more than one person is observed, including Kellyanne Conway's husband. That the Constitution is threatened sometimes by his positions and his kind of disregard for some of our institutions.
I can see,
and I don't hate Trump. I don't hate anybody.
Right.
I don't think. I do. If I was a praying person, I'd be praying for him and his success and as well as his country.
In this podcast thing, I didn't all just wanted to be on Atlantic Beach either. It's like I wanted to find out about the people that live here, like you, John. Like, what makes you tick?
Right.
Like we're talking now. I had a segue that I was just going to go pivot on right there, but it seems to.
well, maybe I have a question. You've sort of been, and I'll say Trump was earlier in his career, liberalish and otherwise.
Yes,
so he's been all over the place.
Yeah, he's been all over the place
over time.
Yeah.
I think if you ever reflected on kind of, you sound like you might have been liberalish at sometimes and more conservative, but sort of what is how did you become more conservative? And sometimes it happens with age, even though I'm much older than you. Sometimes it comes with age, I think maybe somewhat naturally, especially economically and all that. But what got you kind of going down the conservative road?
I think, let me just say, first of all, that when, I did not think Trump was going to win the election, and I was not for Trump during I think Ed Robb or these people around here will tell you that I was not rooting for Trump. But when he got elected and I heard his inauguration speech, it kind of, I thought it was powerful. I know a lot of people called it dark and, maybe even dangerous, but it hit me. That speech that day made me say, you know what? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm just going to go with what, he won the election. He had a strategy. It prevailed. Let's see what the guy can do, And I think that has something to do with it. Just that I've enjoyed seeing him get the best of the international community and things going right in the right direction, in my opinion, on the international level in a lot of ways. And then I think also this the Syria and Obama getting stuck in Syria and all that jazz, and how there was $500 million worth of military equipment that fell into ISIS hands. It was just mismanaged so poorly. And then Obama had this drone war, and then he increased the NSA's power to spy domestically to a level that unprecedented, and all of that was against what I thought. Not that it's not happening today in terms of the spying. I'm sure it is, but I don't know how you get around that. But I think Islam also, the more I've read about Islam, the more concerning it has become for me. And I've also I noticed in the left there's a hierarchy, whereas they will not criticize Islam, because in the hierarchy of multiculturalism, or you have women's rights, you have gay rights, and at the top you have multiculturalism. So they won't, despite how Islam treats its women and their social status in that environment, the left will not criticize Islam, or will not, it seems to welcome Islamic people with open arms. And I also, from what I've read, I have a feeling there's and by majority I simply mean maybe 51%. It's very close to over half. But I think the most of Islamic people would not complain about living under Sharia law. And I think that they might subtly try to move things in that direction, So I have a lot of concerns with Islam. And I think Trump, he kind of gets that with, people want to say the travel ban is it's not, Islam is not a race, first of all, so I don't look at it as racism either, because it's just, it's a little difficult for me to accept what they're bringing to the table,
Well, my perspective on that is that, first of all, I distinguish between, people of Muslim faith and fundamentalist, right-wing fundamentalist, Islamic people. Right. In this country, there's a lot of Muslims, and they are Americans loving. They're not the threat that the fundamentalists and some of the people from the Middle East, have been, at least in my experience and observation. Interesting, though, to your point, my daughter.
Oh, that's right. She was in a play, right?
Yeah, my daughter lives in London, and she went there about 5 or 6 years ago, and she met her husband through a theater company, and the guy who ran this theater company was called Deviate, and it was physical theater, which is kind of a combination of movement and acting and speaking, etc. The artistic, the guy who owned the company, he developed this piece that they toured around all through Europe and Australia and Asia, whatever, for a year. But he was reacting to the fact that in UK, was a liberal guy, gay guy actually, and he said among his liberal friends, nobody wanted to say anything negative or offend anybody in Muslim because of multicultural.
Right.
Okay. So this really bothered him because the erosion of our Western values and protect laws and everything else and things that we respect in our culture. So he developed this play piece that they toured around the world, and it was entitled "Can't We Talk About This?" Interestingly, and it was really kind of it put out, exposed, the challenge, the negative aspects, and I mean the number of people that were killed. My daughter portrayed a woman from Africa who was raised Muslim, abused, and her mother and family escaped out of Africa, ended up in Holland. They did a movie about her. Guy, actually,
are you talking about Ayan Harsi, or what's her name?
I think she
Ayan Hirsi Ali.
I can't remember.
Because she grew up in Africa, Somalia.
Yeah.
And, she went to Parliament. She became in Amsterdam, she became part of the parliament. Is that?
If she did, I'm not sure she did, but I think she now actually lives here on the West Coast. But they made a movie. This guy, actually Van Gogh.
That's right. Yeah.
Made a movie about her, and he was killed on the streets in Amsterdam. So anyway, they sort of portrayed this and sort of challenged, as well as some of the Indian practices of forced marriage of young girls and things like that. So it was quite controversial, but they performed in all throughout Europe this piece, and usually they'd go in early, and the director would say, well, I've consulted with a lot of Muslim friends and others about this, and then there was some drama within the play, a little bit about somebody in the audience would get up and and yell and scream and leave or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank God, they didn't perform this in probably any. I know they didn't in any Muslim countries, but it was quite provocative, and it really was to this point of, people, we don't want to offend anybody, therefore everything is okay.
Which it's not, though. It's not.
It's not.
And the thing that's a little different from Islam than other religions is, according to the Quran, Islam asserts its authority over the non-Muslim, and that changes the game a little bit, I think. And I also think
certainly a lot
their
of
treatment of homosexuals is appalling.
Yeah,
pretty much universally. I mean, it's almost
100%.
If you're Islamic,
it's almost like
homosexuality is out of the question.
It's like Christians.
Well,
some aspects of
some Christians, some Christians.
Not all Christians, but certain.
Yeah.
Who are still trying to. Take the gay out of people, through various therapies and prayers and
pray the gay away, John.
So I think we have to look at Islam in this country because I know some Muslims in this country, Islamic people or whatever, but they don't. Perhaps they should speak up more.
Well, I think there's such a small percentage here, but if you take a country like France, who's suddenly got a large population in Germany and some of these European countries, and you see what's happening over there.
Yeah, and
Trump's thing, he sees that too, and he's like, you know what? We got enough problems, man.
Yeah.
We don't want that. We don't want that over here. We just don't.
No.
And
no, we don't want that over here. But there have been many Muslims that have immigrated here, and by and large, they have become Americanized, and they don't view themselves as taking over other religions. I mean, certainly in Jacksonville we have, Muslim temple, and I mean, they very humble and do their own thing. So I think in terms of the history of Muslims in this country, the fears are justified. I think it's easy to kind of project, Europe and global fears. You project that into our culture and say that, this is a reason to keep people out. History will tell. I'm not sure that's.
I just heard about this, and I may have mentioned it to you about Jane Goodall, in which she was studying the apes. And the apes were very territorial. And the apes would patrol the perimeter of their territory, and when a stranger comes in, they would rip him to shreds sometimes. Now sometimes they would let it go, and then other times they wouldn't have it. And so this is deep in our DNA. It's something that we're going to struggle with in the years to come, and we've been struggling with for a long time. Hopefully one day we can transcend all this nonsense, because ultimately we're all a human race. But in order to do that, we need free speech, and we need to be the authority to criticize bad ideas without being called racist or bigotry or all.
Well, unless you are racist, and then I think it needs to be called out too.
Right.
And I agree. I think there's been a lot of science lately around DNA and the view of kind of what are some of the drives that we have relative to individually as well as culturally. and tribalism, and certainly in our DNA, fears and tribalism and protecting our clan, so to speak. I mean, those are deeply
and the left these days, they're seeing nationalism. When the left hears nationalism, they think Nazi Germany. That seems to be that's the energy I get from a leftist when I hear that, when they start talking about nationalism. And me, I see it more of kind of like most people in Jacksonville like the Jaguars, all right, because it's local, and if you're in Chicago, you like the Bears,
right. And
we tend to, it's natural to hold tight to that which we know and that which is close to us, our neighborhood, our Atlantic Beach. We love it here, you know what I mean? We stand up for it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, really, so long as we're not trampling on.
Well, yeah, I think there is a certain DNA drive around that, and there's a tendency along the things you say. But I also think that being kind of self-aware and sort of mindful in ourselves, that we can transcend that. Okay, yeah. We're not bound by just our tribe.
Right.
We're not bound by just ourselves. We have the capacity to learn to love and reach out and accept and include. Those are things that maybe are not as, some of our embedded DNA things were appropriate back when humankind developed, and
right.
Some
maybe they don't serve as well now.
I've been reading a lot about this, and many of those early kind of things that we're still struggling with are things that are not as relevant today. There is certainly reason to be afraid, but then there's certain fears that are also stoked, and that try to.
And the governments play on our fears, in order to keep control. And, and divide. It's really sad to see the nation, being so polarized. And I agree. It doesn't need to be that way,
Well, I think this is, our conversations, and among others that I know. I mean, we have different views, and really, I think TV and cable news has gone a long way towards getting people driven further into their camps.
Right.
I'm afraid. I mean, and people get latched on, comfortable with a certain point of view, and it's fed and it's inflamed and whatever. And I that doesn't seem to be going away. So I don't know. In that respect, I don't know how people get out of their own little boxes and silos. But I think we do on a community basis. People do reach out. They care for each other regardless in crisis. And
John, I will tell you that every time, I'm being told by the news all the time, that the racism is higher than it's ever been, and that it's dog eat dog, but when I go out into the real world and I run across people of other races, the epitome of pleasantry almost universally. And I almost think it's almost that we're overcompensating, because we're all tired of the drama we hear on the news, and it's gotten to the point to where I'm not even, I don't know. I don't believe it, I don't believe that racism, of course it exists, but I don't think it's I think it's ratings, man. And just like Trump, that's why they cover Trump all the time, right? It's the ratings, and it pays. When your news is susceptible to ratings, which mean the sponsors have a vested interest. Suddenly your news is skewed. It can only be skewed, So it's up to the people to see through that prism, and really, that's the thing though. You got to go online, and not everybody has that kind of time to go online and really deduce what's going on. People are too busy raising kids and staying ahead of the curve.
Well, again, I'll say my personal perspective, which is not everyone's. I grew up in the 60s. I was an anti-war
hippie
demonstrator.
That's cool, man. The Doors.
Not so much of a hippie. It was maybe a college hippie or whatever. But
it's okay, man. It's okay to be a hippie.
No, it was.
My dad was a hippie.
I didn't live a hippie lifestyle. Okay, put it that way.
I liked hippies.
But I felt passionately against the Vietnam War and demonstrated and did various things, not everything, civil about it. And so that was kind of some of my early, experience in life, even though I grew up in a very, very white suburban community. The suburb of Chicago was probably 50% Jewish and 50% Gentile or whatever. But very few.
That's a huge population. Wow.
Pardon me?
That's a huge population of Jewish people, 50%.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wealthy community, probably one of the wealthiest communities, in the United States, and the school was, my high school was just, one of the top 10 high schools in the country. It was really a great, fortunate for me. We moved there from a small middle class community in Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, which moved into this because my dad was a minister, and so we also, my dad was sort of a progressive minister. Even though he was Lutheran, there was a conservative side, there was a little less conservative side.
I'm glad you're saying all this, because I want to know, John, I want to know your view on religion in general, or what do you subscribe to?
Okay, let me come back to that.
Okay.
Come back to that because it's interesting. But so then, I moved to Jacksonville and fell in love with an African American woman. So my first marriage was to an African American woman, and we have 2 children together, children of color. I have, many experiences, in the Black community, and probably have the more intimate knowledge than most white people do about, that experience, as well as the negative impact of that. And my first wife, she grew up in separate but equal, or even not even equal, Jacksonville. Her dad, by the way, is an entrepreneur. She runs a business now. Jenkins Barbecue is the probably the oldest African American business in Jacksonville. It's like 60 years old, which he started. He worked in the paper plants up in Fernandina during the day, and he came home and up and tried to run a business at night. Eventually, became a business. And interesting, he said the only color he was interested in was green. It was the color of people, money if they came in the door.
I think Trump's like that. I think Trump gets called out for being racist, but I don't see Trump as racist, man. Yeah.
So anyway, I think, my experience in that marriage and then just the person, that I probably was to be able to go through that, I have a little different perspective on that. And that racism, I think, people are more civil, but I think there's some evidence that in recent years, people on some extremes are less civil related to race, more outspoken, feel more emboldened to say and do. I mean, the incidences, and the other day that the hate crimes have increased in the last couple of years by a significant percent. So there's still stuff going out there, hopefully it will gradually grow out of our culture and people won't. But I think there's still people, because, my perspective is, as a white person, people will say and have said things to me over the years, kind of not knowing my family or my association, if I'm kind of by myself.
Yeah, sure, right.
They'll say things that are very racist that they wouldn't otherwise say probably in front of somebody else. But then we were discriminated against in terms of housing and choice of housing, what people said to us. It didn't bother us, but we kind of went on anyway, and never had any terrible negative experiences, but subtle ones and some not so subtle ones from time to time. But anyway, actually my major in college was religion.
Okay.
But it wasn't the study of a religion or becoming, to become a pastor or anything like that. It was really, more the academic study of the Bible and how it was written, when it was written, some of the themes of all that. I took a course in Hinduism and philosophy, religions, philosophy, etc. So But growing up as in the church and a pastor's son, of course, I was very close to the church growing up.
Yeah.
It was never my intention to really have a career, kind of in any kind of ministry in terms of related to what my dad did. But I also had as my own personal sense was to do something in life that was to serve other people, which I had a career in human services and working in kind of nonprofit sector. But currently, I'm not religious.
Okay.
In the sense of church religion.
Right.
Not at all anymore. And I'm very much okay with that.
Yeah.
I still have the sense of some spirituality and some God presence in the universe, but certainly I don't subscribe to Adam and Eve and the creation and all that in terms of how it was represented. I think that's all kind of allegorical, and again, science. I really, I think science is respected in that regard to how we've evolved. So anyway, I don't know. I'm not very religious.
No, I'm not either. Like you, I have a penchant for science, and I like to think there's a line of demarcation, and I don't cross that line. Once the evidence stops, I stop. I don't to go beyond that. And begin speculating or to.
Yeah.
I see that when you have faith, you're casting your line across that chasm of uncertainty or unknown, and I think whenever you do that, you're susceptible to great error, as we've seen in all the religions on the planet,
Oh boy.
And so I choose not to do that.
Priests,
Yeah, I choose not to do that, and I just.
I respect people. I respect people. And their faith.
Absolutely.
And obviously, they don't call it a leap of faith for nothing. Okay, because there is a leap from the rational to the what you believe. And it's
right.
And some people can enable and do believe and accept that, and it's a good thing in their life. I don't.
And sometimes people need that little crutch. I don't want to call it a crutch, but people have in the past. No, I didn't invent that.
No.
Right. But sometimes people. I remember watching. Oddly enough, Dennis Miller once, and he said that you could. I think he was quoting someone else actually, but he said you could see a person, the amount of hurt. You can see the amount of hurt in a person's life by how deep they went in their faith to get to that, to get to that God area or something. And I don't think that's true in every case, but there might be a kernel of that might be the case for some people.
But I think some aspects of church of forgiveness, the capacity to forgive, I admire, and I think some of these are things that we can still adapt to our lives and make meaningful and help make our life meaningful for ourselves. Been watching The Crown, which is I think is fascinating. Is this history drama of Queen Elizabeth taking over from her father when he died, and her evolution as the queen. And interestingly, just kind of finished an aspect of it where she needed to change. The monarchy needed to change.
Yeah. If
it stayed in their little elite little space, not relating to the people, and even Queen Elizabeth made some speeches that were, very lofty and put people down in a subtle sense of the average person, and their lives were just, at this other level. So this one newspaper guy started publishing some things and that were, against the monarchy. We're not against it, but criticizing and not supporting them, 100%. And this guy actually got an audience with Queen Elizabeth, and he told her some things that she needed to do, if she was willing to do them, which was to go out and be with the people some, to deliver her Christmas address from from Buckingham Palace and on TV and talked to the people and some other things that were opening up. But she also met Billy Graham. She started watching Billy Graham on some TV, and he came over to the UK with his crusades, and people were going crazy for Billy Graham.
Yeah.
And so she was fascinated and invited him in and had a couple meetings with him in terms of trying to deal with some of her own faith, as she is, as the Queen of England, she's head of the church also, the Anglican Church. So she had some conflict in terms of also forgiving her uncle, who abdicated the throne to marry an American woman. He couldn't be king and still be married to an American woman, so he decided to go for love. But then it came out later, they discovered these secret papers from Nazi Germany where, in fact, her uncle, David, he would have been King David, was actually siding with the Third Reich and was actually selling out the UK, the British Commonwealth, to England, and so anyway, Uncle David was banned from the country and had to leave the family but so she was struggling with whether she should forgive him, and it was sort of Billy Graham said, well, or Queen Elizabeth, well, Jesus even forgave the people who were killing him on the cross. But she said, they did say, forgive them for they know not what they do, as if they really didn't know what they were doing in the sense of killing, Jesus the Christ.
Right.
So Billy Graham said, well, if you can't forgive somebody, those you should pray for them. So he didn't indicate that forgiveness was an absolute sort of thing that you had to do, and especially if somebody didn't ask for ask for forgiveness or repent or whatever. But some people who are Christians can do some amazing things around forgiveness, which most of us probably couldn't do.
Right. Forgiveness. All right, man. I think we've got a lot.
Yes, sir.
We'll sign off here. And
well, thank you, Theo, for the invitation and
the
chance to.
Well, thanks for coming by and being the first one on the chopping block here, and we'll see how it goes. So.
Let's get it out there and
good to see you, John.
You too, Theo. Always.
All right.